This is John I, and this is a recording about how I've worked the 12 steps incorrectly and then how I worked them again correctly and the results I got. Now, I have probably worked the 12 steps incorrectly more than anyone I know. That's a contest I don't want to win. I did eventually get help understanding how the steps were originally worked when they were first written back in the 1930s. And then they worked for me. But I spent years before that attempting in good faith to work the steps. But I did it wrong. So I'm going to share my experience, how I worked the step 1 wrong. Step 1 says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. One way to work it wrong is to say, I was powerless over everything. I was a powerless human being. I had no way of doing anything at all. I was powerless, meaning I just couldn't change or do anything other than what I was already doing. I don't think that's what it's asking, but that's how I worked it originally. When I looked into it, I found that the original emphasis on powerlessness was that I was in fact powerless over alcohol or whatever that compulsion may be for you. I may be an excellent teacher, an excellent brain surgeon, excellent farmer, an excellent mechanic, a parent, a police officer, whatever. I can have many, many, many excellent forms of power, things I'm able to do well, many powers that I have. But to say I am powerless across the board in every possible way would be ridiculous. It's just not true. And the mistake I made was in believing these steps probably will not really make sense. I just need to do them. And I think they may not have made sense the first time I read them, but eventually I was able to get better if I made an effort to talk about, read about, and get help understanding the steps and how to work them. It's not helpful just to close my eyes and say, I will admit anything you ask me to. If you want me to admit that I am from Mars and that my brain is made of cream cheese and so forth and so on, I might be willing to do that, but no, that's really not at all the idea. That would be a mistake. So the way I had to learn to work the steps correctly was to figure out how it was true. What did it mean to be powerless? The way it was true for me was I was powerless over what I was addicted to. Surprisingly, not really powerless over a lot of other things. In fact, I was good at many, many other things. But if my addiction told me to go over here, I wasn't able to make myself go over to a different place. My addiction always won. When there was any difference between what I wanted to do and what my addiction wanted me to do, my addiction always had the ultimate power. Now, it's interesting because this step contains two things. First, it says we admit we are powerless over alcohol or whatever compulsion. It also says our lives had become unmanageable. Now, I could just close my eyes and repeat after me, yes, my life is unmanageable. But I don't think there's any benefit in doing that. For it to have the effect that's intended, I really need to figure out whether that statement is true for me. So, if I say, oh, my life's a wreck, listen to how I messed things up. Listen to what I did while I was completely distracted by my addiction or my compulsion. I lost my job. I got in trouble with work. I got in trouble with family. I got in trouble with friends. I got in trouble with neighbors. Surely that means my life is unmanageable. And I'm not saying those things don't actually happen, and they're certainly not good examples of managing. But managing is actually a horseback riding term. This is from the days when people would be up on a horse. Their feet do not touch the ground, only the horse's hooves are on the ground. So if the rider wants to go left or right, the rider must in some way persuade, convince, or manage the horse to go the direction the rider wants to go. If I want to go right, I have to figure out how to get the horse to go right. If I want to go left, I must make the horse go left. I must manage the horse in order to end up where I want to be. However, if I'm unable to manage that horse, I can want to go right, but the horse is going to go left. I can want to go straight, but the horse might want to turn around and go back in the other direction. So if my life is unmanageable, and it's like a horse I can no longer control, I said I would go home and spend time with my family, but I ended up not doing that. I said I would show up for work. I ended up not doing that. I said I would be a good friend. I would be a good relative. I would be a good church member. I ended up not doing that. Sadly, I would just fail to take good care of my family. It wasn't for lack of wanting to, but I just could not make that happen. My life had become unmanageable. Now, when I can say it that way and understand that it is true, then I have taken step one. I was powerless over alcohol or my compulsion, and my life had become unmanageable. In that way I described with a horse. Therefore, I have finished step one.